Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Boardmasters. My name is Chris Mallins and today we will be doing something a little different to my usual coverage. Up to now we've been doing the traditional sort of unboxings and playthroughs and things like that, but today I wanted to have a quick look, well, interesting use of the word quick because I think this video is probably going to be somewhere in a 35 to 45 minute bracket, but we're going to have a look at the games that I've purchased this year through Kickstarters or late pledges, etc. And these are all games that I'm hoping to feature on the channel in the next year or so, so hopefully they will be something that excites you in there and something that will make you want to come back and look at it. If there is, then feel free to comment down below, let me know what in particular you are looking forward to, and if there's any particular type of coverage you'd like me to provide for that, and I'll do my best to oblige. Timestamps will be in the details, so if there are only certain games you want to look at, feel free to jump ahead to those bits. I will say, I don't think it really needs to, but obviously none of this is paid promotion. At the time of recording this, I haven't even gone live on the channel, so why would anyone pay me? So, but I wanted to say it just in case, because, I don't want you to feel like my views are compromised and that I'm not being honest to myself. If and when this channel ever gets to a point where somebody does want to pay me to review something, then I will tell you about it. But let's get started. The first game is Return to Dark Tower Manager, not because I wanted a board game. But this was the first one. It was bombarding me for days earlier in the year on social media, and eventually I just gave in and clicked into it to see what all the fuss was about. I never played the original, so it's not nostalgia fueled. I know a lot of people who did are unhappy that this is app driven, but for me that's not a problem at all. I've got no issue. But as soon as I click into this, just the sight of that tower on that world map is incredibly exciting for me. And apologise in advance, I'm going to be saying exciting an awful lot in this video, I imagine, so sorry for that now. But that is just an awe-inspiring sight for me, with this world map and all the bits that go around it. I mean, look at these little sculpts that go on with the skulls and everything. And I believe that was just the 60 centimetre map. I've also backed the 80mm neoprene mat, so it's going to be a real dominant presence on the table when this finally gets set up. As I've also got the Dark Horde expansion. I mean, look at this tower. It lights up, it spins, it shouts at you. Whether it's powered by an app or not, it's an incredible bit of kit. Got the alliances, but this is the one as well that really excited me. So we got this range of miniatures in size, and I think they just look great. I mean, can you just imagine these things running around the map outside of that tower? It's just going to look incredible. And hopefully that should be here relatively early in the new year. I haven't heard of any delays yet. I think it was scheduled for February. So we shall see. But that was the game that started it all. Next on the list is something completely different. Canopy. So it's a 2-player card game initially. As part of their campaign, they did unlock solo and 3 to 4 player variants. But the aim of the game is to grow a bountiful rainforest in a beautiful 2-player game of card drafting and set collection. So, as it says, the aim of the game is to create the most balanced rainforest. It's not about just getting the most of a certain flower, or the most boas, the most toucans, because having too much of anything is as bad as having not enough. You want to get it balanced so everything works together in perfect harmony as it should do in nature. But the thing that really attracted me is just look at the artwork here. It's absolutely gorgeous. And combined with a very cheap price point in terms of the previous game, I just couldn't resist this. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I don't usually go for 2-player competitive experiences, they don't usually tempt me at all. But with this one, I just couldn't resist. I think it's stunning and I'm really looking forward to that one. Next one is Perseverance Castaway Chronicles. So discover a living dinosaur world in 2 standalone thematic strategy games, also playable as a campaign with evolving game mechanisms. I will mention now that this is 2 standalone thematic games, but there are another 2, i.e. chapters 3 and 4, that apparently will be hitting Kickstarter next year. So although I will be receiving this one in June next year, I probably won't play a lot of it on the channel until I receive 3 and 4, just because I tend to not like starting a series if I don't have all of it. Any Game of Thrones fans will understand that pain right now. But I was instantly just captured by dinosaurs, really. Something you'll notice through a lot of these games, it's really the theme that takes me in. I'm not experienced enough in this hobby to know what mechanics I like, what works for me, what don't. But being stranded on a dinosaur-ridden island just sounds really exciting. Trying to build a base camp whilst dinosaurs are attacking you, and then expanding into the island in episode 2 and just discovering what you can, domesticating dinosaurs, that sort of thing, is just something I really, really want to do. And throughout the campaign, they kept adding more and more. So we had these lovely leader miniatures, and then they had the dinosaur miniatures. They added in extra variants for all 3, which I think look even better. I think if they can pull it off so it looks like that, they will be absolutely stunning. They also added in the soldier miniatures, which they weren't going to. They did a big post early in the campaign explaining why they weren't going to do soldier minis. They were just going to be standees. But I think either because the campaign did so well, or because public pressure, or maybe it was the strategy all along, they did announce them in the end, and I'm really pleased that they did. They've also announced that for episodes 3 and 4, any deluxe backer of this campaign will get a free soldier mini set. I am one of those, so I will be getting that, which is really exciting. And again, yeah, it is just a really beautiful, incredibly complicated game. This is certainly a lot heavier than, I think, even than Return to Dark Tower. So it's probably one of the heaviest on this list. Again, please leave a comment if you do want to see some footage and coverage of this on release. I will do an unboxing, but if you want anything more than that, please comment and let me know, and I will do my best to do that for you. Moving on, we have got Dead Reckoning, the swashbuckling strategy game. So 4X meets card crafting in John Declare's next masterpiece, immersive high seas action where you choose your path to victory. And this one was a really interesting one. For anyone who was involved in the campaign, you'll know what I mean, but it was the first campaign I've ever been involved in where the atmosphere for most of it was absolutely toxic. The comment section, people were just furious throughout this. And I think the overwhelming mood was because very early in the campaign, they were doing these daily releases, daily unlocks, and in the first 2-3 days, they were giving out free expansion, free ghost ship boat, so not replacing, but in addition to that battle boat for the Dice Tower, they announced the ghost ship one as well. They announced these variants on your crew called Sea Dogs, and then as the campaign went on, the value they were giving back to their customers as the campaign was getting more and more successful was dropping, and it very much gave the impression that they knew they had an incredibly popular game and that they knew it would sell regardless, and so they decided to hold back on the giveaways and just added add-on after add-on after add-on towards the end, and a lot of people were angry about it. I'm not sure how many of them took their money and ran, because the campaign was hugely successful and made an awful lot of money. But it was a toxic campaign, and that was also my first sort of introduction to board games on YouTube. Board Game Co. did some fantastic videos on this campaign, and did a really good interview with one of the guys at AEG as well, where they sort of talked about the decisions, which, having watched that, does make me think it wasn't necessarily a malicious campaign on their side. They just misjudged it poorly, and there was an issue with the wording on one of the pledges where it said you'd get all of the daily unlocks, and then a number of daily unlocks were add-ons that weren't included, so the wording was poor, but they can't change it, and it was all a bit of a mess. But I love the way that in this, it's not sort of a traditional game where you set off your initial crew and you just bin them off and replace them as you find a better first mate or a better gunner or a better crew member or a better deckhand, as in this video. You always keep the same crew, but you upgrade them using these clear plastic sleeves that have extra powers in, and you also level up your crew by changing them, flipping them over, in which case then they have more abilities and can do a lot more each turn. So you've always got the same crew, which really, I think, is really thematic in terms of just developing that sense of camaraderie, really. And, pirate themes are always great if they're done well. Who doesn't want to sail the seven seas, looting and pillaging these beautiful islands, finding cargo and treasure, and then blowing up anyone that gets in their way? But yeah, it was an interesting campaign, and as I mentioned, Board Game Co., I will obviously put the link to their channel in the details at the bottom as well. I will also do that to Quackalate because I'll be mentioning them later. But those two are without doubt my two favourite content creators in this space. So I'd definitely recommend that you go and subscribe to their channels because I think they both make fantastic content and have cost me an awful lot of money because I can't resist. The next one I bought, this one was already a Kickstarter that I missed, and it was another one that Facebook were bombarding me with. I believe it's now had to drop the Time of Legends from the name. It's just Destinies now, because there was some contractual dispute with a previous game, something to do with Joan of Arc. There is a big update about it. If you're interested, you can read it. But as you'll see as we scroll down here, it does say Joan of Arc compatible. I don't believe that is the case anymore. And like I said, the Time of Legends name has been dropped. This one is another app-driven one, but it is one which is hugely story-driven. It's all about the narrative and adventure and character development, which is right up my street. With video games, that was always the type of game I wanted. Always wanted those massive, big RPG games. Love games like Final Fantasy and things like that. So getting a board game equivalent is really appeals to me. The competitive aspect of it, I'm not too sure about yet, but we'll see how that plays out when I get it. And there is a 2v2 expansion on it as well, which sounds even weirder, but I'm sure I'll give it a go. Again, the first competitive story-driven RPG-like board game ever. So you just need that sentence and you sold it to me, basically. There are some great minis in here as well, if I can find them. Again, there's the Joan of Arc stuff. That's not applicable anymore. Really like the artwork and the makeup. Some NPC miniatures, some big boss miniatures. Again, I think they look really good, although a lot of them were unlocked later. But that should be here really early in next year. I think that's a January expected date, which is really exciting for me. I can't wait to start off the new year with that one. The next is The Shivers by Andy Logan. So you work together in this mystery pop-up role-playing game for 2 to 5 players, exploring a spooky mansion filled with hidden secrets. I went back and forth on this one a little bit because the art is stunning. I mean, these little pop-up rooms that you fit together and you have to search through the rooms and open drawers and search behind curtains and whatnot to find these little cute clues and trinkets and tools that you can use is just so tactile and so incredibly gorgeous, in my opinion. The only thing that worried me is the actual gameplay aspect of it, because obviously once you've played a scenario and you know where things are and how they interact with each other, then you're not really going to play that scene again because you know exactly what's going to happen. And also, due to the sort of escape room nature of it, one player has to act as sort of a dungeon master and follow the instructions that are on the back of these boards, which tell you how the tools and whatnot interact and how they defeat the monsters and things. So, and that, as the host, I would assume that I would take that role. And it isn't a role that generally I'm comfortable with. I'm not a great talker, which is ironic, given that I'm doing a video about just talking. But 3 to 4 months ago, the idea of me doing this would have absolutely terrified me, and it's probably going to take a while before I am able to do a video like this feeling entirely comfortable. So thank you all for joining me on this therapy lesson that I am having. But here we are, these rooms in a bit more detail. I mean, they are just absolutely stunning. And by the end of the campaign, it got to the point where any doubt I had, I just pushed it aside because it just looks so gorgeous. And also, they did make a big point in the campaign of saying that they are going to encourage fan-created stuff. So they will, although there's limits to these scenarios and they're not going to be particularly replayable, they will be providing sort of blank slates to create your own characters. They will be hosting things on their website for fan-made scenarios and stories so that people can print them off. And that just means a game that I'm worried about the replayability can now last forever on the back of fan-made content, which is a huge selling point to me. The next one, Roll Camera, the filmmaking board game. Work together with friends to write, storyboard, shoot, edit, and premiere a quality movie before running out of time. You can also make a movie that is so bad it's great, and just on that, I love that straight away. Just that sense of humour that this game has. Again, the art style with these little sort of bean people is instantly appealing. It's a cooperative game, which I love, with asymmetric skills, because you all take on a different role in making the movie. One is the director, one's the producer, one's the sound engineer. So you all have different skills. You have to work together in order to create a movie. So as it says, you roll your crew dice, assign them to the set so that you can shoot scenes and assemble your film. Obviously, with it being about making movies, you're under pressure in terms of time and money, and you'll also experience problems along the way, but it's just how you solve that problem as a group. Again, I'll just try and find a bit more of the game components. So we got this clapper box. A lot of people were a bit unhappy with that because it's probably not the most logical choice for a storage box for a board game that you constantly want to be pulling in and out, but they have assured us that it is going to be very, very durable and very resilient, so I'm happy to go with them on that because I think it looks great and I love the theme of it. We've got the board here, so on here, this is where you shoot your scenes. You get these little set piece tiles that we'll see in a moment that you have to fit on here in the right order so that your cameras are in the right place, your actors are in the right place, your lighting, etc., are all in the right place to match your scene card so that you can shoot the scene to put it in the movie. And again, here are those asymmetric player boards with the different powers. So you've got the editor, the star, cinematographer, producer, etc. These are the set piece tiles, so there's like a camera space where you can put, obviously a camera goes on there, an actor, lighting, some give you extra money, and you have to arrange these in such a way that you see on the back of these scene cards. So this one needs 2 actors, a microphone, lighting, and a camera orientated in that order before you can shoot that scene and add it to the movie. You also have these script cards, so you have them in top halves and bottom halves that you combine at random to create the title of your movie, which does lead to some silly, funny titles and also give you the bonuses where if you combine, so for each green emotional scene on this one, you get an extra quality. For having a yellow ahead of a purple one, you get 2 quality. And again, those colours are the emotion. So some, I think red is angry, blue is sad, I think yellow is love, purple might be comedy. But again, that's all subject to change. But I just love the theme on this one, and it was relatively cheap. I think $49 plus shipping. That's not too bad. Even if it does lose a bit of money, it's not going to be that much, so I'm happy with that. And again, really excited to get that here. Next one is another one I went backwards and forwards on a lot. I think I cancelled my pledge on this one twice before going back in on the last day. So Petrichor Collector's Edition, the highly interactive board game of controlling clouds and growing crops, now with Cows expansion. And the reason why I was a bit worried, because I think, again, it looks stunning. It's utterly unique in terms of anything I've seen. And with this collection, what I was trying to do is get as big a range of genres and themes as possible. And this very much stuck out as something that I should add to that collection. But I was just a bit worried of how fun the gameplay actually is. Because, as I said, how is it played? There are 4 simple actions. With frost, you make new clouds. With sun, you add more water. With wind, you move clouds around. And with rain, you water the crops in order to grow them the most I have the most water on that crop to earn the most points to win the game. And again, it looks great, but I'm not sure how fun it will be in practice. A lot of these sort of, what's the word, recommendations are more about the artwork than about people loving the play. But again, these expansions, look how cute that cowl is. That cowl is absolutely just sweet and lovely, and will be lots of fun to move about the board. We've got the other expansions and those clouds as well. I mean, they look so tactile and much more interesting than the original little trays that they used. We've got the other two expansions involved here. We've got the flowers expansion. We've got the honeybee expansion. Again, a very sweet little honeybee flying around. And just, I'm really, really keen to try it. Again, I'm not as confident as a lot of these other games on the list, but I'm glad I took the punt, and I'm sure it will be enjoyable. I'm just not experienced enough to know that it will be enjoyable in advance. Next one is the same thing. I cancelled my pledge on this twice, I think, and then got it in the pledge manager in the end. So Lizard Wizard. No little flavour text there. Jesse at Crackleoak will be very upset with that. But here we are. You will compete to recruit wizards from 7 unique schools of magic, build mystical towers, research powerful spells, summon helpful familiars, and search dark dungeons for gold and items of power. Plan your strategy and build effective spell combinations. Only one archmage will rise above the rest and control the land. Will it be you? And first and foremost, I'm going to say it a lot in this video, the artwork is gorgeous, in my opinion. The artist is someone called Annie Stegg, I believe, and she did all the dragons and the familiars initially. Throughout the campaign, they also got her on board to do the tower artwork and the dungeon monsters, which we'll see as we scroll down. So initially, there was quite a big discrepancy between the quality of artwork on the dragons, etc., and then the quality of artwork on the towers. But hopefully that won't be an issue with the final product due to the same artist working on all of it. And this is the game board, so it's got this really interesting market dynamic on here that I don't have on any of my other games, where basically throughout the game you are earning resources as a standard, but as you earn more of them, the value of that resource goes up, and then you want to obviously cash in when it's at its highest. So it's basically a resource stock market, and it's that timing aspect of when do you cash in? Do you wait to try and get it at a future turn when the value will be higher, but you know that someone else has got a lot of that resource and they might want to cash in? So do you wait and risk it, or do you cash in early so that the value of that resource drops significantly so the next person isn't sitting on a big pile of valuable resources? Which is a really interesting dynamic, I think. Also, in terms of recruiting the Archmage, is the dungeon card. So again, I think they're being redone. And they've got a really interesting risk versus reward when you go into the dungeon, which is another aspect I don't have a lot of in this list. But as I was saying, in terms of recruiting the mages themselves, that is all done through auctions, where you select an Archmage and everyone gets the bid, and highest bidder gets it, which is something I don't have in any of the other games either. So it does really fit that niche in my collection in terms of a couple of mechanics that I just don't have anywhere else. So I'm glad I buckled and FOMO got me and I went back in and got it. The next one, this will almost certainly end up being my most expensive game. The fact that it's not outright my most expensive game already is a bit worrying given how much I spent on it, but once the postage bill comes through, I'm sure it will reclaim number one. So Massive Darkness 2, Hellscape, fight the source of evil in a standalone sequel to Massive Darkness with new art, incredible minis, and revamped gameplay from Come On. And I wasn't sure initially. I didn't think it was particularly a game for me, but then Quackalope had a really excellent playthrough, although it was on Tabletop Simulator, so it was a bit clunky. You could see how much fun it was. And the fact that each hero in this game has, similar to Roll Camera really, has an asymmetric skill set, and almost every character is basically like its own little game to play in terms of how they control and how you use their skills. is really interesting and really fun. And then on top of that, you've got an absolute sea of gorgeous miniatures. I mean, that's just the base game. You've got everything in there, really. It's just absolutely stunning. You've got this centaur hero and all these sort of demons, and then you go into the Heavenfall Pledge where you get these evil angels that you have to fight off. And then you go into these paid expansions. You've got this giant dragon, who caused some anger during the campaign because I believe they may have used that mold in a previous game. I'm not sure. Or either that or some people were just very unhappy that it was a Chinese-style dragon and didn't have wings. But for me, I think he looks great. You've got the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, which, again, look great in my opinion. You've got Cerberus, you've got these souls, you've got the druid character where he can turn into different sorts of animals, which brings a whole another tactical aspect to it. That's basically that character's minigame, the druid, in that they can turn into different animals with different strengths and weaknesses. I, of course, got all the bling, so all of these little packs I'll have don't impact the gameplay in any way. They're just there to look pretty, but similar to Return to Dark Tower, really. Once you've got your tiles set out with your map and you start placing these everywhere, and then you've got your heroes and your boss minis and your enemies all walking around, it's just going to look incredible on the table, in my opinion. And that alone just has me incredibly excited. I, of course, went the massive all-in, which is why this was the most expensive game on my purchase list, but it is no longer. But we'll get to that towards the end. But one other thing I want to point out that I'm really excited about is this little pack here, the Rainbow Crossing one. It's another thing that a lot of people got very angry with in the campaign, because a lot of people really don't like the thought of playing a dungeon crawler and having to fight evil cupids and evil unicorns and an evil sort of Care Bear boss. And they weren't happy about it. They were livid. But for me, I absolutely love it. It's so different to everything else, and I think it's really thematic as well. You're facing this darkness that's encroaching on everything, and the darkness has got hold of the dreams of children and warped them and twisted them into this fighting force that they're then trying to use to take over the world and extinguish the light. And just from a thematic point of view, I love that. But it's going to be a while before that one turns up. It's going to be probably this time next year, if not a little later. But hopefully it will be worth the wait. The next one is Endangered New Species, which is an expansion to the original Endangered board game, which I have also got as part of this campaign. So I haven't got it yet. I was hoping they would do a staggered shipping where you get the base game originally and then you get the expansion when it releases. But unfortunately, they both come at the same time. So I'm just going to have to try and be patient. But the basic gist of this is it's sort of dice placement, which is a similar mechanic to a few others, but you're using that to try and save a species that's on the edge of extinction. So you're working together to do something that really matters, I believe. I mean, ecology and animal preservation is something that is increasingly key in this modern world, and anything that raises awareness of that and gets you engaged in that, even if it's in a board game setting, can only be a positive for me. I mean, it may be a little bit depressing if you lose all the time and you're constantly sending all these animals to extinction, but hopefully that won't be the case when I'm playing the game. There's a lot of scenarios in here, so you've got the jaguars and the tapirs, you've got the sea turtles, polar bears, elephants. There's a few more unlocked in the stretch goals, so we've got condors, we've got pupfish, and they're all got made extra pretty through stretch goals. And they also added a campaign mode, which is something that could be really interesting. There's Kickstarter only bonus as well, but instead of just playing as individual games, you turn it into a campaign. So you're always fighting to save something. I've got the Panda expansion as well coming, as well as obviously the base game, which has tigers and possibly something else, but I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it's all about manipulating animals around, trying to get them to breed, trying to limit the damage to their habitats and influence important people around the world to have campaigns to protect the animals, and all bringing it together into a board game, which is something that I cannot wait to play. And I really hope that is as fun as the theme looks, because it does look great. Hey everyone, Chris here. Sorry to interrupt, well, myself, but like I said at the beginning of the video, I thought this was probably going to be one that stretched to 35, 40, maybe 45 minutes, but I obviously enjoyed myself far too much, because by the end of it, we'd gone over an hour, and that's far too long for anyone to sit and listen to my dulcet tones. So I'm going to split it in half and call it a day there, and I'll upload part 2 soon. So I hope to catch you for that one. If you like this one, please like and subscribe, because there will be a couple more parts to this. There will be a part 3, and I'm sure if I keep buying the rate I am at the moment, there'll be plenty of further parts down the road. But hope you have a good one, and I hope to catch you again soon.